Perfect. We are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Base Northman, for making the time today. Appreciate it.
No worries.
Yeah, it looks like Twitch is having some conniptions, so I'll send you the Rumble link instead. Give me 1 second.
Or YouTube even, that might be really good.
Oh, true. Yeah, YouTube would probably be best. All right, give me 1
Just to
second.
post it and share it, you know.
Sorry, we got to get the word out.
Anyway, yeah, hello. Yeah, thanks for having me back a second time. I didn't think the first time was so interesting.
Well, I don't get to meet a lot of Icelandic people in my everyday life, so having that conversation was interesting about all the all little Christmas trolls that you told me about. And just
Yeah.
about living life in the UK too. I remember quite a bit of that still.
Well, it has not improved, I can tell you that.
That's basically what I've been hearing. If anything, it's actually escalated. Okay, yeah, we're all set now. So when did the flag saga start? When did the largest game of capture the flag actually start for you guys? I'm confused as to how that even, like, where does that even come from? Who even got the idea? Is there like an inception of this?
Yeah. And proximity-wise, I was very close to it. My only claim to fame here is just being in the same group chat as I mean, it could have. I'm trying to sort of recall because this was like August or July maybe. Definitely sort of latter half of summer. Someone I know in a couple of group chats that I'm in, at the very least, started flagging his area, and he was very keen for the idea to spread. And he now runs this thing called Flag Force UK along with a friend of his. And Flag Force UK essentially they sort of act as like a. How to say I think they kind of help supply, like they basically help supply flags and things to flaggers all around the country. So that they'll take like donations and stuff, and they'll buy flags and they'll send flags to people who want to set them up and so on.
Mm-hmm.
He's like one of the guys running that. And as I say, he sort of did his local area, and then that sort of started to catch on, and then he started the flag force, and now it's a universal thing. So yeah, that was like latter half of summer. There was some concerns that this was just like a summer stint, and as soon as the bad weather starts, then people are going to pack it in. But that doesn't really seem to have happened. It does seem to still be sort of self-sufficient. And judging by Flag Force's account, they're still going strong, and they're still having, consistent conflicts with local authorities and stuff about flagging and things. But yeah.
Well, there's no shortage of things that they can tack onto, right? Because that's the best part of a symbol like that, is that you can just tack it onto the general decline or depreciating value of, or depreciating perceived value of identifying yourself as British or as having, have generations of family in the UK, where it became fashionable a couple years back, and still is to an extent, depending on the circles that you're in, to say that you're an anti-colonist, or you're an active decolonizer,
Yeah.
or I don't know, any myriad of these opinions. But you guys can tack it on to anything. I mean, whether it's the grooming gangs or ULEZ or anything that is just anti-British identity, there's no shortage of things you could apply a flag to.
Yeah, I think the sort of the angle with the flags and I remember this being discussed a lot, is essentially that they are optics wise, they're unassailable. So if you stick a bunch of St. George's crosses on lampposts around York, and the council doesn't like that, they'll drum up some reason. But either way, what ends up happening is you get a bunch of like high vis council members pulling English flags off of a lamppost in England, and so when you're looking at that, it's like, why are you taking down the flag of the country that you're in?
Mm-hmm.
And you can obviously sort of, what they try and do is just offer up all kinds of coping things and say that, I mean, officially speaking, councils will say that it's like against certain highway codes, health and safety and stuff.
Oh yeah. It's
Can't be
very distracting.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what they said. The BBC said
yeah,
that.
very distracting and stuff.
Yeah, very distracting. Oh, a fucking flag of the country that you live in. So distracting. Oh my goodness. I might have
Yeah,
a conniption. Like,
but
fuck
everybody smells
off.
the bullshit. But everybody smells the bullshit, and so all you're left with is just essentially implicitly hostile local authority taking down the flag that you're in. It's like, okay, well, that just suggests to normal people that the national flag, i.e., the country, the national character, is implicitly viewed as hostile. That's what that's what that sort of creates. That's the sort of situation it creates, which is great. Which is great for normal people, and I think that's like kind of the important point here is the whole reason for flagging. I would say, I think at least insofar as its inception is that Britain is in this is experiencing this kind of unique form of decline where yes, everything is sort of materially going wrong. The economy's bad and the politics are bad and people are being killed. But we've also had a general erosion of our national character. Nobody knows what it means to be British anymore. Americans know what it means to be American. If it like despite everything, regardless of whatever's going wrong, everybody can always fall back on being American. It just makes sense in your head. But with British people, it's like nobody wants to fight for the country. Nobody likes the country. Nobody likes the government. Nobody is confident in referring to themselves as British in a particularly distinct, unique manner. It has to include everything and everyone, and it just ends up being nothing. And so that's kind of where the flagging comes from. Is a rediscovery of that national character being made explicit everywhere.
Yeah, and that is interesting that you mentioned that the flag is it serves two purposes. That when it gets taken down, it looks obscenely bad for anyone that's doing it. Because it's like, okay, so what? So you guys can fly the pride flags for an entire month, but for
Yeah,
the actual country where we all reside, which we all pay towards, which some of us have sacrificed their lives for, that's not okay. But this other social cause, this thing that we're told is culturally significant, but actually does not hold any historical relevance to the character of the nation, that has to stay up for an entire month. Like, okay, all right. So we see where your priorities
yeah,
are. You're kind of you're exposing yourself. You're telling on yourself like that.
exactly. You're telling on yourself. You are establishing where your loyalties lie, and it's not to the country that you ostensibly represent.
Yeah. And before we go any further, also I gotta say, love the helmet because that's certainly an upgrade from the last podcast where you were wearing that the fox cap and
Yeah,
the ski
yeah,
glasses.
yeah.
Is that a genuine I don't, I mean, I don't know. Like I said,
This one.
yeah, is it like a
Yeah,
historical artifact, or like is it just like made in modern age?
it's just a piece of like reenactment gear basically.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
But design wise, it's authentic.
Right on, right on. No, that's awesome. Because there was actually there was one content creator on last week's stream that I did with a friend of mine. We found, I don't know if you've seen his posts. I'm gonna try to find it on Instagram. This guy that goes around and essentially makes these like patch note update type videos where he talks about the UK server and VPN players invading it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you know this guy?
I've seen the videos. Yeah.
Legend, absolute legend. I'm gonna see if I can
Wait, so did you
if I
say you
can
had him
find
on,
him.
or what was it?
No. I the weekly stream that I do with my friend for White Pill Wednesdays. The last time that we did it, I remember I brought it up and we showed a
Right. Yeah.
couple of his clips. I'm gonna see if I can pull his account now because what he does is like, oh yeah, here it is. It's it's so smart because he can get away, like he can avoid the censorship by not having like the trigger words of like migrants or what have you, because he says VPN players, um Keir Stalin, like all these like different codes that like code switching that he uses to kind of get around that. It's it's nothing short of amazing. I don't know how he like what his turnaround time is like, how he edits these things. I guess he just uses a lot of AI tools for it, because I mean a lot of this like you would have to import from assets that you'd have to import from like RuneScape and whatnot. But the way that he does it is just it's like a work of art, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Incredible. Have you well I mean I guess for you it might be a criminal offense to say whether or not you have been involved in these things, but do you know of people close to yourself that may or may not have been at the site of a flag raising?
Um, no, other than sharing a group chat or two with one of the Flag Force guys. Other than that, no. Although that being said, me and a friend and I do would like to go flagging. I won't say where or when, but that is in the works.
Right on. No, it should be the next great British pastime. It absolutely should be.
Yeah,
I don't understand why anyone would have any sense of shame or any kind of regret over it. I mean, I've heard like people make the other argument that there's these racists that are co-opting it and yada yada yada. It's like, yeah, okay, that's the same thing as when the left when they protest, they have Antifa. What's the difference? Like you guys are fine
yeah.
with them, but it's bad when the right does it. I'm confused a little here.
I mean, I think I'd be reticent to even make these kind of like draw these ideological lines, because an interesting point about like um all the recent sort of civil unrest, so to speak, in Britain, is that a lot of it is made up of people who were never previously political. So another acquaintance, Jack Hadfield, he's been sort of all over GB News, at Jack Hadders, I think it is. But he's been like an independent journalist on the ground at all of these recent protests outside the hotels where they stick all the fresh migrants in.
Mm.
And something he mentioned to me, which was interesting to him, is that every time he's been every time he's been to these protests, the vast majority, almost everybody that he speaks to, has the same background in that they say, "I've never been political before. Like I've never involved myself in that kind of thing, but I'm
Hmm.
here now because whatever. Like I'm angry or I'm concerned or whatever." So these are like a lot of these people, like a lot of the sort of most visible, explicit kind of civil unrest, and I imagine a lot of this probably goes to the flagging as well. Are people who never really consider themselves particularly political, but have kind of found themselves thrust into this situation, or just kind of find themselves feeling particularly incensed by everything that's going on.
That seems to be the common thread that I've noticed here too. I mean, I've seen quite a few videos of people in Canada here, like we're not getting engaged in the same respect as you guys are with the flagging and everything, but a lot of people are coming out of the woodwork and saying, "Look, I didn't used to have these opinions. I didn't used to have these beliefs. I didn't
Yeah,
used to be the kind of person that would think twice about whether or not our immigration system needs to change and to what extent, and my feelings about migrants." But it got to a point where it just became untenable, and I had to say something because
Yeah.
now my community is affected. Now my job prospects are affected. Now my family members are affected. My friends and loved ones, and the nation at large is affected. Uh, I mean, I
Yeah.
can say the same for myself. I grew up in a major immigrant community, a lot of newcomers to the country. I learned how to play cricket before I learned how to play baseball. You know, I thought that multiculturalism and all these things were a great benefit to the country, but I hadn't realized that it has to be done in a very, very specific way. And even then, you know, there's arguments that you can make against it. But now that it's become this untenable problem, I mean, our unemployment rate here in Canada, for at least the province that I'm in, is, at least for the youth, is at the same level as it was at like the peak of the pandemic, because they brought in so many temporary foreign workers, temporary foreign workers,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they've taken up all the entry level jobs that teenagers and uni students usually would have when they go back home from the summer, and they just need to make some cash. You know, they just got to like serve some coffee or, you know, do whatever just to make ends meet. But now those opportunities aren't available to them, so a lot of people like myself and my friends are now like, okay, maybe we should reconsider this.
Yeah, you know what they say, there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government solution.
That's right.
But
That's right.
yeah, but what is that? I think it's a Thomas Sowell quote, I think. Yeah, exactly. It gets to a point, you know, it's all well and good sort of not being political, and I would definitely advise that for most people. Um, but it's like, but you can enjoy that luxury in a country that just sort of doesn't really have any particularly strong problems. Like if we're just squabbling over the usual stuff, you know, just about like the exchange rate and energy prices and stuff like that. It's like, hey, yeah, don't be political. It's pointless.
Mm.
Um, but as soon as the day arrives that you as the father of a normal family in a normal suburb that has no problems whatsoever, and you're comfortable letting your children out to like walk to school or like go out with their friends or whatever and come back at 6 p.m. As soon as you know your daughter gets like raped by an asylum seeker in the park that they usually go to, you like it. You don't have a choice. It's just there's okay. Well, now there's a problem, and this problem didn't exist before, and it directly affects you, and it simply should not exist. Um, these people, like as I say, these people who are going down to these migrant hotels to protest and stuff, like that's kind of the demographic. It's just like it's just normal families who are suddenly feeling the pressure of like not even being able to not even feeling safe enough to allow their children to like walk out their front door
Hmm.
because some like fucking Afghan asylum seeker might just whisk them off the street and rape them, which happens way too often. Like we had a whole we had a whole like 2.5 week stretch where we didn't get a single day without a major headline saying, asylum seeker X rapes X child in some place in England.
Hmm.
Um, and so for all these people, yeah, for all these people, they just don't feel like they have a choice. And that is a very sad state of affairs.
I'm pretty sure there's even an interesting story where Keir Starmer was the one of the lawyers that was arguing for, I forget his name, but the individual who was the father of the
Axel Rudikubana's dad.
that's right, yeah, of the guy who killed those two girls after they did like some Taylor Swift dance class or something like
Three
that.
girls.
Three, it
Three
was
girls
three.
stabbed to death. Yeah. Yeah, Axel Rudikubana's dad from Rwanda. I think I can't remember if that was confirmed or not. I think maybe. But yeah, representing his human rights case for coming here from Rwanda. Yeah, I can't remember.
Which, I mean, that explains why they wanted to kill the story immediately, because of his own personal ties to the fact. I mean, like that, you can literally see the consequences. You know, hindsight is 2020, but you can see how it follows immediately. Like if his immigration had been denied, If his status had been rejected and if he was kicked out of the country, there's a good chance that none of that would have happened.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of when we were like when we talk about like the grooming gangs, for example, where you just have these like entire communities of Pakistani Muslims, raping children just constantly every single day, and they've been doing it since like the 60s or 50s. Whenever it sort of enters the national conversation, you always come across this rebuttal where it's like, yeah, but what about the white British rapists, of which technically they're the sort of fiscal majority and all that kind of thing. Like, what about them? And it's like, yeah, true. On the one hand, we should like, if it's me talking or someone else talking, it's like, yeah, on the one hand, we should kill slash deport, every single Pakistani rapist, and then someone comes in and they're like, yeah, but what about Sam Jones who raped a 14-year-old? It's like, yeah, we should kill that guy as well. But the point that they're willfully missing or avoiding is like in the case of like the white British child rapist, like you didn't have a choice but for him to be here, so you have to deal with that in its own way. With these like communities of Pakistani guys who do it to just like a whole another level, they don't have to be here, and so that's just an imported problem that the state has willfully put on people. It didn't need to be. It didn't need to happen in the first place. Um, that's kind of what people, certain opponents try to. That's how they try to sort of muddy the conversation. But it's like, yeah, with these like rapist asylum seekers or foreign communities and stuff, it's just like they didn't need to be here, and so that problem didn't need to exist, and that problem is therefore the result of a very specific decision that didn't need to be made.
Yeah, not to mention like if we already have enough, well, like not to make light of it, but like if we already have enough rapists, like why do we need to add more to the pile? Why do we like what argument could you possibly make
Yeah, yeah,
to
exactly. Yeah,
import like to add more to
yeah,
the pile? It's like, oh, but what about the whites? It's okay, it's okay. All right, so yeah, so we whether or not the UK has a problem with that, sure, let's investigate that claim. Fine. That doesn't mean that we get to just import more VPN players from various continents
VPN
and
rapist.
yeah, VPN rapists from different continents of conflict where their ideals don't align with ours. That's not an answer to it. That doesn't solve the actual inherent problem. I don't understand how anyone can defend that. And it also it when I read all this stuff about the child grooming gangs, I whenever I encounter any stories like these, it takes a lot of time for me to digest it just because I can't understand how the scale and scope of something that is so big and affects so many people's lives went not undetected, but it didn't reach the national stage as like a dinner table conversation that you would have with either your friends or your family up until now, even though it's been happening since the early 2000s. It's just now it's gotten to a rate where you can't ignore it anymore, where you can't excuse it. But I remember reading some documents where the police did in fact admit that to not look racist, they explicitly ignored or tried to
Yeah,
push away any of these claims regarding an entire community, which is just so beyond the pale. I mean, I'm pretty sure there was that one incident where a girl actually showed up to the police station. I think she was 12 or something, and they charged
yeah,
her for being drunk.
yeah. Well, I think there's all kinds of stories. I think with that one, the one I do remember, which might be that one, is that this is this girl that turned up to the police station and she made a complaint, and yeah, she was like underage, so they just basically told her to fuck off, pretty much.
Hmm.
And she literally walked out the door
Yep, yep.
and then got picked up in one of their taxis and driven away and raped. Yeah. And then like in like a bunch of other occasions where the police actually turned up like at these flats where it's happening. They turn up and they walk in and they find like all these Pakistani guys, and then like one or two naked, underage, completely intoxicated girls, and they book the girls to being like naked and intoxicated, and leave the guys alone. Like that happened a bunch of times. Yeah, the reason that we it hasn't sort of reached the level that it should is it's a very deliberate one. The state at every single level, social services, police, government, um, has all been in overdrive trying to suppress the story and just like crush the story because it's so bad. I mean, it no matter what you, especially as someone who like doesn't live here, no matter what you know about it, it's worse. I can guarantee you.
Hmm.
Um, and that's obviously, I mean, obviously that's why it's been crushed so hard. To preserve community relations and avoid accountability and stuff because it is literally like without hyperbole, it's literally like Britain's 9/11. Um, as you say, the scope and scale of it is like incomprehensible, and it really is.
I mean, you're by allowing this to happen, you're affecting entire generations of people, not just the victims of it, but the people around them, and how that's going to change their sentiment about, uh, I don't know, just living in this multiculturalist society that we're kind of forced to live in now. And the thing that always confused me about, the grooming gangs was that, there's an argument to be made, like let's say for when Biden was in power, for letting all the migrants in because they assumed that if they flooded the what they deemed as sanctuary cities and gave them benefits, that these people would align with the Democratic Party because they also want to have their friends and family come over, so they will gladly vote for them in an election. And it would also
Yeah,
change the political makeup of the nation because when they do their census and they include all these people in the census, it would allow them to get more votes or more representatives in the various government bodies of power. So that's America. In Canada, the argument that I've at least kind of come to the conclusion is that, with these temporary foreign workers, the companies are not paying nearly as much money to staff these people because the government is subsidizing portions of it. Otherwise, I don't know like what the other possible reason could be for importing Infinity Indians. Um, because if it's not commercially viable, then like who is it that benefits? And I never quite understood what the possible reason could be for the UK to do this. I mean, is it really that leftist thought has penetrated so far up into the political landscape in the UK that regardless of the consequences, whether it's all these incidents at the hotels, the grooming gangs and what have you, all these violent attacks, regardless of all that, they're still willing to stick to their guns because it's the ideological imperative of their side? I don't like who actually who benefits from it. I'm having a hard time understanding that.
technically nobody, such as the madness of this whole thing. I think like as with most other countries, whether it's Europe or Canada or whatever, the whole like labor employment and like voting bloc angle is certainly a factor and probably a major factor. Um, I think in Britain, probably one of the most salient points is that we used to rule the entire planet,
Mm,
and in the 60s or whenever it was, we passed a bill allowing all of our previous colonial subjects, who we didn't directly rule over anymore, um, to have automatic voting rights if they were to come from their, you know, backwater islands, wherever they're coming from, to Britain.
mm-hmm,
Um, there was tons and tons of discussion and conversation and controversy surrounding that, surrounding the build up to that, and eventually we passed it. And so that's kind of, I think that's pretty much driven. That's driven like a lot of, not necessarily a lot of the numbers, because technically the Boris wave in the early 2020s, um, like single handedly wipes the floor in terms of sheer volume of immigration compared to literally the previous 1,000 years. So it's not necessarily a thing that sort of drove the numbers, but I think it's what sort of drove the sentiment, like drove the idea, which was like we were in this unique position where we felt this sense of um, like debt to our subjects, or sort of like a combination of debt and some weird sense of like camaraderie. Um, and so we passed this bill, obviously giving them automatic voting rights if they were to come here, which opens up voting rights to literally billions of people. And so that just kind of becomes a thing that permeates society, which is like Britain can and should be a home for Caribbeans and Indians and Pakistanis and like Africans and stuff. So it creates this like sentimental environment, which I think probably allowed us to sleepwalk into something like the Boris wave, which was when I think pretty much immediately after Brexit, we experienced more immigration to the country in like 5 years than we had in the previous 1,000. Because I think Boris passed some bill lowering. I think the principal driver was lowering the income threshold for being able to apply for a visa here. And so we just had like literally millions, like 4.5 million of people from just like the back end of all the worst places come here. It was like 3% of our population arrived in the year of like June to July of 2023 to 4, I think. Pretty crazy. And we just kind of allowed it to happen. And like that doesn't benefit anybody. It hasn't benefited anybody. The only thing that's caused is like higher unemployment because none of these people work. Rape, murder, crime, crowding out of like rental spaces, all that kind of thing. Community tensions, obviously, because now you have a bunch of communities that hate each other for ethnic reasons that have nothing to do with it. And then you have the asylum seekers and the refugees who are all arriving here by boat, and there's like thousands of them every single week. And we allow that to happen because we're locked in with like 4 or 5 the Refugee Convention, the Human Rights Act, and the ECHR. All 3 of these things, in all of their own ways, just basically completely stop us from legally being able to do anything about the problem. Refugees, if they claim that they're a refugee, they can't be penalized for how they enter the country. That's like Article, I don't know, 8 or 30 something of the Refugee Convention. And then of course with the ECHR, it's like if any of these people, like if we want to deport any of these people, the hearing, they can just take the hearing, they can take the case to the ECHR, and 9 times out of 10 the ECHR will just let them go, let them stay here, which generates really, really funny headlines, like for example, Albanian drug lord claimed that his son couldn't get chicken nuggets in Albania, which caused him undue stress, and therefore the ECHR ruled that he can stay in the country.
Oh, that's great.
Headlines like that.
That's great.
Yeah. So just for a million different reasons, cultural reasons, kind of political reasons. Obviously, this is all amazing for like the civil service and like the lawyers and stuff because they all get like brownie points. And then, yeah, for just a million different reasons, this has happened in the first place. And for all those reasons, we just can't do anything about the problem. We can do things about the problem. We can just leave the ECHR. We can just scrap the Human Rights Act. We can just leave the Refugee Convention. We can just do all these things. The problem is that we're run by insane sexist virgins who think that international law and the international courts are like gospel. And you cannot do anything to fault them. That's sort of the problem.
Yeah, because when I see, like, I saw footage of the mayor of London, I think his name is Sadiq Khan,
Yep.
when he was there were those hearings that they held about the grooming gangs. There's a clip where he's being asked repeatedly whether or not London suffers from the same problem as they've seen with Rotherham and all these other jurisdictions, and he just kept, I mean, avoiding the answer basically. And he's like, I'm not sure what the member is defining when she says grooming gangs. I'm just not quite sure about it. And she's like, I don't understand where the confusion is. This has been on the headlines for the past several weeks. Everyone is talking about it. You can't bump into anyone without having a conversation about it. It's everywhere you go. It's unavoidable. What do you mean you're confused by this? And he just kept like playing this cat and mouse game of like, I don't know, I guess just trying to
Yeah.
change the definition or what have you. And when I see that, I just think, okay, but somebody has to benefit from this somehow. Like somebody has to gain something from this. I don't understand how you could sleep at night knowing that you are helping perpetrate these kind of acts, or at least defend and cover up for these kind of acts, and not be getting something out of it. Because then otherwise, if I don't see what the other side of it is, what the benefit is for that individual, I mean, I don't like to jump to conclusions like this, but it just makes me think, oh well, you're just evil. Like you're actually evil incarnate, and you wish upon just absolute sheer death and destruction upon your people, which is very strange considering that you're supposed to be a representative for them. I don't like to go down that path because I feel like it chances are most oftentimes it's incompetence over actual, acts of evil, but I'm not really left with anything else if this is all that we have to go on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In many of these cases, you're dealing with people who genuinely think that being racist or being perceived as racist is literally worse than raping a child. Um, so you're dealing with people who might, it's like Sadiq Khan, for example, has probably had some piece of paper across his desk at some point that's like some executive overview of like a grooming gang inquiry, like a grooming gang investigation.
Hmm.
And at the very least, he's probably read one or two court sentencing transcripts. Maybe. I mean, maybe not. Um, and the conclusion that you draw from it is okay. These predominantly Pakistani Muslim guys uh, are committing these crimes at a disproportionately high rate, at a disproportionately higher level of depravity. That's true. But someone like him is reading this, and their brain is just like shutting off. They're seeing, like child rape and crime and horrific deed, but they're just not grappling with the substance of the issue because they think that if they were to even entertain that, that would make them like unequivocally evil. Um, you're dealing with people who just genuinely think that like raping a child is just is not as bad as uh, people thinking that you might be racist. A lot of it is just incompetence. Those police officers in that station when that girl walks in and she's like whatever her complaint might have been, you know, those guys probably aren't literally evil. I think that they just couldn't be bothered to do their job, which is something you find a lot in British sectors, especially public sectors. They just don't want to do their job. She comes in, she's saying some stuff, and they're just like, just fuck off, man. Like, I just don't care today. And then she goes outside and gets raped. And it's like, okay, yeah, they're not like evil per se. They just don't want to do their job. But then you have like the social services women, so, like you got the women who are like working at the foster homes, who are meant to be looking after these, vulnerable children from broken families, and they're literally passing the children out of this foster home and handing them over to Pakistani rapists, knowing what's going to happen. Like those people are evil. Um, those British people are evil. Why they're doing it, who knows? um, and like the police who turn up, like when fathers would track down where their daughters have been taken and turn up at the flat and start causing a scene, as any sensible father would, trying to get their daughter back. When the police turn up and they arrest the father for causing a scene and then ignore the rest of the situation, it's like, okay, well, these police guys are obviously presenting with a situation where they're seeing like a white British dad, an underage, underdressed, intoxicated girl, and then just a bunch of like unsavory looking Pakistani guys This police officer is presented with a situation that, as part of his job, he's meant to make a snap judgment about. And he's willingly choosing to make the judgment that the white British guy surrounded by the diverse bunch is the problem. Because he doesn't want to lose his job by picking a fight with the diverse bunch, which he knows he will. And so he's deciding against that judgment to go for the safe option. That, in a roundabout way, is evil. And that just comes from, as I say, thinking that being perceived as racist by anybody, your family members, your employer, is literally worse than doing or dealing with child rape.
Compromises at various levels, and eventually it just winds up into being a crisis that is untenable for any one person to take on, but everybody played their role by turning their eyes away or just not doing their job at one point or another.
Yeah, good point. It's like a million different isolated decisions that are all governed by a very particular sort of implicitly evil kind of permeating ideology that in aggregate has just created like the most unbelievable crisis.
No, that sounds about right. Because especially when leftist ideology makes it into the public lexicon and some things are taught as a quote unquote given, you actually ignore a lot of truths, whether it's about history or cultural makeup or what have you. At least, like for instance, here in Canada, I was not aware that native tribes had owned slaves. I had no idea. I only learned this until recent, and the moment that I learned that, I realized, oh no, like I've always been apprehensive towards this, as any person would, to destruction of the Canadian identity, because at one point or another, we, to put it lightly, mistreated the native peoples. But I knew all along that they weren't exactly all gentle giants themselves. They had their own wars and infighting and very cruel and barbaric methods of taking each other out. I'd always known that, but I didn't realize anything would actually go as far as having them own slaves. And when I learned that, I realized, oh well, that I have no need to like regard this in any kind of soft light whatsoever. Like, yeah, it doesn't excuse what happened with the residential school system or even in the quality of life that they live in now. Absolutely not. It's abhorrent, the fact that we have entire sections of the population here that don't have access to clean drinking water. But this isn't like the point that I'm trying to make is that it's not like cut and white. It's not clear cut. It's not black and white. It's gradations of gray like anything else in life. And these people are not infallible. They're not perfect. And the same thing can be said for immigration. It's nice and all when we have people that come in, that integrate, that accept the language and customs and all these things and play by our rules. But when it gets to a point where we have truck drivers crashing into busload of kids or going the wrong way on a highway and taking out a grandparent and their grandkids, or any of the other incidents that we've had here, that's when I come to the mind that, oh, okay, I'm not playing by these rules anymore. This is not, we can't.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. We can't have the same kind of thoughts that led us to having this open and free and an open trust society, because we're not in one anymore. We don't, that's not where we exist now. But the language remains because it's become the culturally dominant thing, the popular thing to say that, oh no, we have to stand up for all these people's rights. We have to defend them against the right and so on and so forth. It's like, no, I don't think we do anymore. I really don't. In fact, I want a lot of these people out of here.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, even Britain, like there's a debate that I think Constantine, I think it's Crizin, I think his last name is. He does the trigonometry. Yeah, he does the trigonometry podcast, and at one point he was on some speaker panel where he said, "Hey, did you guys actually know that Britain was among the first nations to actually outlaw slavery? That they were among the first
literally ended slavery. This is a really, really important point.
Really important.
Yeah, really important, because we obviously get caught up in like very American discourse, where like literally over the past week we've had like a whatever you call it, the African Union, some collection, some informal collection of African countries and stuff, saying that obviously we owe them reparations. Um, and you know, no one seems to remember the history whereby it was a specific. It was the Abolition of Slavery Act, I think it's called, in 18 something, 1860s, maybe 1870s. There was a purely moral decision. It wasn't an economic decision, and you know, sure enough, when it became part of the political conversation, it had plenty of like blowback. It was an entirely moral decision on our part to drain the treasury, forcing or not forcing, using the Royal Navy to patrol our waters and intercept any slaving ships you came across, free all the slaves on board, outlaw any use of slavery in our territory. We used our material military might, naval power. We used our naval power to go out there and force unwilling countries, anyone that we could come across, to hand over their slaves so that we could free them because we thought that slavery was just so morally abhorrent. And no one seems to remember that. It's like, okay, previously, like before then, we had slaves, presumably. We certainly did. And in some economic material sense, we probably benefited from them, sure. But that's the point, is that like everybody has or employs slaves for all of time. Every single corner of humanity has done it, and you know still does. In the places that haven't caught up, we were the ones who had the moral framework to say we don't want this anymore. This is terrible, and not only are we going to outlaw it in our own lands, we're going to go out there and use this hegemony that we've built up to stop it from occurring anywhere else. And everyone forgets that.
Yeah, like once again, yet another example of ignoring those details because I guess it doesn't fit into this narrative of history that some people seem to be extremely keen on pushing, which I understand. Like, you know, it defeats their argument, so they want to ignore it. But at the end of the day, it's it's nothing short of incredible that I had to learn this late in my 20s. You know, like in school, we were taught, oh, Canada was a safe haven for a lot of slaves that fled from America using the Underground Railroad and all that. And even now, some people still hold this belief that Canada is somehow, in some way, shape, or form, responsible for slavery, and that we played a role in that, which is just nothing short of absurd. Not to say that there isn't any at all like truth to the claim, but that we engaged in the same extent of slavery or anything close to what the U.S. did is just it's nothing short of ridiculous. But
Yeah.
because it just becomes ingrained in the public lexicon and it becomes a convenient story to tell, I guess these details, they just happen to fall through and everyone forgets about it and nobody really cares about it in the end, when in reality it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, that achievement in and of itself is nothing short of monumental if you consider the time in which those people lived in. I mean, the British Empire had no financial incentive to do this. There was no
Yeah.
incentive besides morality and decency for their fellow man to enact something like this. I mean, if they really wanted to, if you guys really wanted to really squeeze out every single pound out of these people, you could have. You could have completely just dominated the global slave
Nobody was
trade.
going to stop us. We fucking ruled the planet, you know, so
That's
we
what I
could have done
mean.
it.
That's what I mean. Like, you guys were literally poised in the best position out of any other civilization in human history to take full advantage of the slave market at the time and completely corner it. I mean, absolutely just dominate like nobody else has in like at any point in human history. And you guys decided not to because you came to your senses and decided that the rights and the freedoms of your fellow man were much more important. Which, I mean, it's nothing short of incredible
Yeah.
to for something like that to happen in 2025. Everyone thinks, oh, that's obvious. Of course, you don't treat people like that, and so on and so forth. Okay, but back then, I mean, come on, like that's
When
quite
it
the
was
fucking achievement.
when it was still a economically favorable thing to do. But that's the
Hmm.
thing. Like the sort of the most important point of that is that it was an entirely moral decision, which came with all of its own controversy, and people, plenty of people didn't like it. Not least people who were literally directly profiting from it. But that's the important thing, is that was just purely a phenomenon of Western philosophy and morals.
Hmm.
Because as you say, it was tremendously it was a tremendously costly policy to pursue. Tremendously geopolitically risky, because obviously we were going out there intercepting any slavery ships we came across. Like any of that could have been, construed as some kind of act of war. Yeah, just an entirely moral decision that came entirely that was entirely to our material detriment, but we did it anyway. Like, those are your reparations. We don't fucking owe you anything. Like, we went out of our way in every single sense of the word to do that for you.
Yeah, reparations for what? For the fact that you guys sold your own people to us. Like that's what we're like. Like
Yes.
people also don't like to talk about that. Like I remember there was a reel that I saw of a comedian that was like, look, there's no way that white people came ashore to all these African continents and just hunted them down. Have you seen how fast they run? Have you seen the athletic prowess of these people? You think a bunch of white guys wearing the not the girdles, but like all the different, like, fancy fits that you guys had back then that were in fashion in their buckled shoes. Oh yeah, no, that guy's definitely running through sand and through the Gobi Desert and wherever else
Yeah, yeah.
to catch Matumbo. Like, that's not happening, man. That's not happening. These people were sold. They were sold by their own leaders. They were sold by their own people. That's also another part of history that doesn't come up as often. It's like, this wasn't just that they came with nets and spears and arrows and guns and muskets and all that. No, these people were sold. They were sold by their own leaders, because that's
Yeah.
what people did back then.
I seem to remember reading a factoid that current African internal slave trade is higher in volume today than the peak of the transatlantic slave trade. You might have to double check that, but I remember reading that, and if it is true, it's a very useful thing to deploy in these conversations.
That would be interesting to see, because I mean, slavery hasn't ended. There's still plenty of people
But yeah,
that live in indentured servitude. I mean, even the I think at one point, actually quite recently, the UN, somebody had like some kind of special envoy investigate Canada's temporary foreign worker program, and they said that our program is essentially modern day slavery, because what happens is, when these people come here looking for their visas and everything, and many of them go through illegal means, whether it's paying for diploma bills and colleges, and just paying for their degree. When they find an employer and they actually stay, what ends up happening is, now the employer has a belt around your neck, because if you step out of line,
mm,
if you refuse to do work, if you do anything that they disagree with, they're going to look at your visa status and say, hey, you want to stay here or you want to go home? Okay, go scrub the toilet, go do this, go do that. And I know somebody close to me who has a working relationship with someone who is actually in essentially like that kind of a situation, where they can't refuse certain work because their employer is has the purse strings around their visa.
yeah, yeah. It was some UN lady who was under a slave in a house. I think she mentioned this. My grandmother earlier today. Funny.
That sounds about right. Um, Now it looks like, in terms of the comparison, uh, the absolute number of people currently enslaved globally, which is around 50 million, It approaches historical totals. The rate within Africa specifically appears lower than the peak historical periods when accounting for population growth. Okay, so there's all these factors that it's taking into consideration. But the fact
Fair
that
enough.
like it's still going on, right? Like this
Yeah,
hasn't
yeah,
stopped, but it certainly stopped in Britain. It stopped in Canada. It stopped in America. It stopped in all these developed nations that developed the moral codes and all the legislative processes to eradicate something like this. They put a stop to it, but there's still plenty of nations that practice this.
yeah, yeah. And they haven't they haven't had the moral wherewithal to ban it in their country. So
And we're supposed to raise our fists for BLM or for these migrants and say how bad we feel for them. Like, no, dude. Like you like you don't get to come from your war torn country and make it like your war torn country. That's not how this is gonna
yeah,
go. That's not the social contract that we signed up for. I'm not gonna feel bad anymore when these people start getting kicked out as they rightfully should. I mean, there have been plenty of incidents
yeah.
like here in Canada. We had one where um, a gentleman, well, that's I should actually use that word. A disgusting person, disgusting man, used some social media or like dating websites or whatnot, try to hook up with a 15-year-old, and it turned out to be a sting operation. So that when he got arrested and put to trial, the judge said that due to your current situation with immigration, because the sentencing would affect it, we're just going to place you under house arrest instead. Great. Like I got nieces, man. I got young girls in my family. Am I supposed to now like be concerned that that can happen to them at any moment?
Yeah, a lot of there are a lot of mitigating factors that should be reconsidered as aggravating ones. I think.
I mean, what
Like
is?
if you're like a
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, if you're like a massive schizo or something, I don't think that should be like a mitigating factor in how you're judged. Probably like an aggravating one. If you're like a fresh off the boat migrant, that probably shouldn't be a mitigating factor in how your case is considered. It should probably be fairly aggravating.
Yeah, it's apparently in Canadian law, it's enshrined that like your so race is actually a part of it too. There have been a couple of cases where they've ruled more leniently towards non-whites because you're the socioeconomic factors of your upbringing. They put you in this situation where it was unavoidable and you had to act like this and so on and so forth. So there have been other cases before, but now immigration is part of it too. So we have cases where individuals are clearly committing crimes that any normal Canadian citizen would serve time for, or in the older days would be put to death, which now seems like a more, I don't know, more interesting alternative because clearly, like, well, they're not stopping. They just keep committing these crimes, and they just keep getting slaps on the wrist. So, what are we actually going to do about it to put an end to it? But, yeah, there have been plenty of cases where things like this have happened, and they've just gotten lenient sentences, which is nothing short of disgusting. I don't know. Words fail me whenever I hear stories like this. Um, I mean, we even have it so that like you don't have a right to self defense in Canada, and to some extent. So if someone breaks into your house, you have
Yeah.
to use proportionate force to deal with them. And recently, we've had some home invasions. One where a father was actually gunned down in front of his kids. And so my thinking is, okay, in that moment, was he thinking, "Oh, I have to be careful with them. I can't swing too hard. I got to pull my punches. I can't use the pepper spray. I can't use the baseball bat. If they have knives, I got to use knives. Like like what are we doing here?"
What are we doing here? Yeah. Yeah. Problem is like a lot of these people, especially in the UK with these asylum seekers who are literally like fresh off the boat from just the worst place you can think of, is that they're coming from cultures that are incredibly one dimensional, at least insofar as what they respond to. So it's um like a funny meme from the Drupa Kunli account. is like you need to if you're dealing with like mass immigration of people from like the back end of India or Pakistan or something, you need to have like caning police on the tube. Like you need to introduce caning police on the tube or like on like placed around the streets of London to if they see some like Indian guy spitting pan, whatever it is. In India, they'll just get caned for it. The police will just run up to them and they'll just like cane them and just hit them with sticks.
Or slap them, yeah.
And that obviously yeah, and that obviously like disincentivizes them from doing all that. And it's a very just like uh, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to make any kind of statement with this, but it's a very primitive approach to like punishment. But it's like that's kind of all these people understand. It's like if you just kind of like if some just like Afghan like countryside Afghan guy comes here off a boat and then just like rapes a child, if you just book him uh, and you're just like you can't do that, man. Here's all the paperwork and things, and here's all like the Anglo-Western stuff, and just like we're just gonna like give you culture shock, trying to fry your brain, all this stuff. He'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever, okay, and then as soon as he walks out the door, he'll just do it again. He's coming from a place where how they respond to it is just like, yeah, we just kill the guy, or we just like beat the fuck out of him, or we just get like the tribe to lynch him or something. I'm not saying you should do that, but they're coming from very one-dimensional places where the response needs to just be like just violence. Basically, it's just like, yeah, we're just going to hit you over the head until you comply, which is a little bit annoying. um,
Yeah,
I don't
I
know where I was going
mean,
with that.
well, I mean, my every time I have this conversation, and I hate how often I'm having to have it with friends and family alike, because like we said at the beginning, like many of us never had to have these kind of thoughts. Many of us never had to even have this in the back of our minds, or wonder
Yeah,
what we would do in these situations when it comes up. But anytime I have these conversations, it always just ends up to, okay, so what is it that actually can be done by the average person? What is it that actually can be done by people that want to not get involved in these situations, or just protect themselves and their loved ones, or just on a larger scale, um, see what can be done to actually change policy, and actually make waves so that changes are more permanent and less reactionary. I mean, politically speaking,
yeah,
I don't really see an avenue for the UK to elect a leader that will actually stand up for a lot of these rights, because even like Nigel Farage, like he'll go on his little speaking tours, and he has his clips and all that, and sure, maybe he's making waves right now because he's one of the few candidates that's recognizing this, but even he, I don't think, will go far enough. Here in Canada, our Conservative Party is conservative. Conservative isn't even the word for it. They're essentially left-leaning conservatives, and they will not go. They will not
yeah,
go the distance and do what needs to be done. Which, in no, like, if I am actually to discuss like what actually does need to happen, a moratorium on immigration completely. Just put a full stop to it for a little while, whether it's months or even up to a year, and figure out what needs to happen. I think the government needs to create a short list of nations that we have a certain quota of people that also need to be heavily evaluated once they arrive here, because not all nations, like you said before, share our ideals. For example, I didn't know that in India, marital rape is actually legal.
yeah,
Like marital rape is legal. They have train cars designed specifically for women and women only, because the men can't control themselves. Not to mention all the other issues regarding public sanitation and all this other stuff. Um, yeah, it's becoming more and more clear to me that nothing short of somebody who is considered extremely far right that will actually step up to the plate. Like there doesn't seem any other solution for it, and I don't like having that thought either. It's not like I'm joyful or gleeful about it,
yeah, yeah,
because whenever the
yeah,
pendulum swings back, I mean, if for anyone that's studied even basic history, they know that it's always going to be ugly, whether it's on the left or the right. It doesn't matter which political side you're on.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. I don't want to see violence in the streets. I don't want people to be getting beat up because, just because they're not white. Like I'm not. I don't see that as a coherent vision for an open trust society. I really don't want to see that. But that seems like that where this is headed. You keep letting it happen. Eventually, the wrong person is going to get the wrong idea at the wrong time and place, and they're just going to start fighting back. They're not going to take it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And this actually takes us kind of onto very much current affairs, but I'll sort of like a few points here. Your first point about like the politics, the politics of the situation, yeah, completely correct. And like it's a very curious thing that it seems like pretty much the only country and the only leader in the West who's actually like doing anything of political significance is Trump, and it's like not. I've come around to liking the guy, but this doesn't need to be a value judgment on him or his politics. It's just sort of objectively true that he's doing things that are actually uh, pushing the needle. They're actually interesting, and like obviously for some people they're terrible, and for some reason, and for some people they're fantastic. But the point remains is that he's actually like doing stuff. Um, he's actually rounding tons of people up and deporting them. And he's actually like taking the fight to different countries, like economically speaking, and literally and militarily. He's literally blowing up drug dealers. Like this stuff is actually happening, and you can, yeah, as I say, you can agree or disagree with it, but the point is that it's happening, and that in itself is very much unique to the rest of the West, whether it's Canada or very much in Europe. We just have this like really bizarre political pathology that just infects everything, where it's like just nothing. It's just the old meme of like nothing ever happens. Like Italy votes in a hard on immigration right wing prime minister, and she doesn't change immigration whatsoever. Like
In fact, it goes the
she's
other
just
way.
like
She makes it
lukewarm, not
easier.
really doing anything.
She made it easier for them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like obviously Britain is the worst. Is probably the worst case of this because this is literally where all the like so much of the civil unrest is coming from. Is that we have consistently voted in the party, whatever it was. For most of the time, it was Conservatives, but Labour as well. That has campaigned on lower immigration for the past 30 years or so, and every single party that has gotten in has done the complete opposite, and that's like where all the frustration is coming from. And that's like the weird thing is that like everybody now agrees that the Conservatives, the Tories, are just centre left. They are virtually indistinguishable from Labour. It's just that they have like different branding. Um, that's why everybody's so tired, and that's why like Reform. If there's a general election right now, Reform would just win straight away because it's not because Reform is exceptional, and Nigel Farage is certainly not an exceptional character. That's not the reason. They would just win because they are an alternative, and it's the same everywhere else in Europe. Like Germany, for example, they were going to vote in AfD, and the entire political apparatus arranged itself to form a coalition to stop the AfD from getting in, and so they didn't.
And they died.
And it's like even now they're all
And
dying.
they died. Yeah.
And as you say, yeah, and like as you say with Canada, like I'm not really caught up on Canadian politics. And to be fair, yeah, it does seem interesting, but I completely take your word for it that Canadian conservatives, like most other European, like European conservatives, just end up just in practice end up just being like centre left, just wet wipes basically. It's a really fucking bizarre situation that we're in, where just the status quo just never changes. Um, and so yes, the person who would have to come along and actually solve these problems would just seem unbelievably extreme relative to what is considered like business as usual. Would extreme would seem extreme to the establishment.
Hmm.
What was your second point?
Oh, I think that it just
I think it was just
it
that.
makes it easier for someone that holds extremist ideals that do go far enough or even beyond that point, uh, where it becomes like palatable for people to elect them. Because as you said, if nobody else is doing the job and the people that we elect are supposed to be quote unquote conservatives, but even they're not getting the job done, it's like, okay, well, how far to the right do we have to go for this to actually become a concern for someone, where they're not just pulling the carpet from under us at the last second and being like, oh, I'm kidding. I'm actually not going to go that far. I just did it to get elected. Now I'm in office. I can do whatever the hell I want. You're creating the atmosphere for someone of, I mean, for lack of a better example, of like a Hitler type figure coming along and being like, no, this is what we're gonna do. We're actually gonna eradicate them.
Yeah.
We're gonna go all the way, and we're going back to 1940s. And it's like, I every single time that one of these politicians doesn't meet the pale for the expectations of the people, then it's okay. Well, now we're one step closer to that figure coming along and saying, okay, you know what? Those guys didn't do it. I'm gonna do it. And you can tell by my extremist ideals. You bet I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think this is like part of the other point you made, which is the sort of like the normalization of political extremism, it's like not if not the normalization of it, the like the opening up for it, or the kind of creating the environment where it appears necessary. I think that kind of brings us on to where we are now, because the two the two most important events that have happened this past week, that Irina Ukrainian refugee being stabbed to death, and then Charlie Kirk being shot in the throat, just now. Um, these are like they've become so important, and they are watershed moments specifically because they are products of an environment that is making people necessarily extreme. So it's like with DeCarlos Brown Jr., the guy who killed the girl. Like it's so important because he'd been in court 14 different times and released every single time. And he was just released into the sort of into the public. And then unprovoked, he just kills a girl, a woman. And the bulk of the conversation, sort of contrary to this, is like, why didn't we just kill him? Why didn't we just like these really extreme things where it's like, why didn't we just, if we didn't kill him then, we just have to kill him now, and everybody like him has to just go. We have to kill him. It's creating this really extreme environment where if he just wasn't there in the first place, if things were just a little bit more responsible, if he'd have just been like permanently sectioned to like mental health treatment thing, or if he'd have been executed like judicially for previous crimes, then people wouldn't be having this conversation. But now people are freaking out, and they're just saying, and they want to satiate some bloodlust that video has generated. And then with Charlie Kirk being assassinated, the message that sends is a message that's consistent with um, messaging that has been very significant for the past few years, coming from a particular subset of people, which is that you can't be moderate. There's no point in being moderate. Like, you don't want to feel so strongly about certain political things. Neither do I. Most people don't. Most people don't want to be baying for blood, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you don't want to have these like super strong feelings about political stuff and about like ideological differences and stuff. But we'd be sort of being forced into the situation, and Charlie Kirk is such a watershed moment for that, because he's any old right wing conservative pundit, talking head, influential character, but his whole brand is engaging with people in like a debate format. It's just having a conversation with people on a student campus where anybody can ask him anything and he can just respond, and they can just have a conversation. By all accounts, for like right wing conservatives and stuff, he was like a super moderate character.
Yeah, like what's his
and he
crime?
gets shot.
He said some things
Yeah,
like,
and he gets shot in the throat for it. And so, like, obviously, the message that sends is you can't even be a guy who wants to have a conversation. They'll still want to kill you. And so it's like, okay, well, what are we left with? Like, I don't want to feel violent towards political or like ideological enemies. Like, me personally, I've grown up with this thing in my head where it's like, why am I wrong? And why are you right? Because I can't be correct about everything all the time, and neither can you.
mm,
And so it's like, okay, I feel pretty convinced of this one thing, but there's got to be like a middle ground here, and that's something that I just always pester myself with. Is like whenever I, and this is especially important for Twitter because you come across a post that seems very convincing, and it physically switches how you think about something, but then you come across another post literally immediately after that, and it presents the perfectly it presents like the contrary case, and you feel yourself switch over to that side. Um, and so often I'll catch myself and I'll read something and I'll have some knee jerk reaction to it, or I'll have some sort of initial like comprehension of it, and I'm always asking myself like, why am I wrong about this, or why exactly is this correct?
mm-hmm.
That kind of thing. But then you just you have someone like Charlie who is almost like making a brand of that, and he gets shot in the throat. It's like, okay, I'm not going to bother with trying to moderate myself. I'm not going to bother with trying to avoid any sort of feelings of extremism or any sort of strong, confident feelings like I'm right, you're wrong, and if you get in my way, I'm going to fucking obliterate you. I'm not going to try and moderate those things anymore because if I do, I run the risk of being shot by you. That's just like the. I'm not saying that's kind of. I'm not necessarily saying that's where I'm at, but I'm just saying that that's the environment that things over this past like couple of weeks are creating.
Well, that's where it leads, and it's not just the past couple of weeks, right? Like let's rewind the clock, right? By the 2010s, I mean, if you look at the Google Analytics, terms like DEI or systemic racism, they skyrocketed because part of Obama's campaign was that not only was he going to be the first black president, but that he was going to usher in this new wave cultural understanding that we have to repent for our sins of the grandparents that lived 200 however many fucking years ago, right? Even though like plenty of adjustments for quality of life have been made in all those various groups. Like, yeah, the Japanese were interned at one point across North America and elsewhere. And yet they are also among some of the top high earning income groups in all of the world. Like, yes, black communities were redlined and there was Jim Crow slavery, but you had a black president. Some of the richest people in the world are some of the richest black people in the world exist in North America because the market made it so that it was favorable for them to, I don't know, to do music or sports or investment or what have you, right? But it was just this rejection of reality that we have to uh, that regardless of the progress we've made, we have to lean back on the pains and ills of the past. And that started in the 2010s. We had Me Too, right? Which, say what you want about it, all those people that were gung ho for it, they all knew what was happening in the industry. They all knew what was happening. They all knew what was happening with Weinstein and everyone else. And then it went to the opposite end, to the point where now men are afraid to ask women out, or to approach them at a club, or to act a certain way around women, or even to hire women because they don't want to get caught up in a scandal. And all these like different little increments that we made, whether it's in between men and women, between whites and blacks, or non-whites and whites, all these little concessions that we made along the way have made it untenable for anyone to say it's okay to be white. Like that was seen as a hate crime at one
Yeah,
point, right? Which is beyond
yeah,
ridiculous. Like that's not even saying white power. That's not even saying white excellence. That's just saying no, it's okay to be white, which it is. It perfectly is fine. Just like it's okay to be Chinese or Afghani or Pakistani or what have you. It's okay to be your race. You didn't choose your race. What do you want me to do about it? You know? But now it's like we've made all these concessions thus far, and look where that's gotten us. Now we have to worry about getting stabbed in the neck by some random guy. Now we have to worry about anything, you name it. Even when I go out for a smoke now outside my apartment, I take a thing of pepper spray with me because I don't trust the homeless activity around here. I'll be up late night working. I was just working on some setup for another stream that I'm doing yesterday at like 3 a.m. and I just hear this guy just spouting all these different epithets and just cursing out in like nonsensical language. It's like, oh great. I'm glad that I was able to time my smoke so that I wasn't outside for that, because God knows what would have happened. You know, like it's nothing short of insane. Oh, God forbid I take a Taylor Swift dance class with my daughters. Like so what? I can't even go to Aldi's. I can't even go to. I don't know what other chains you guys have. I'm not familiar with the landscape. But like I can't even go to the chicken shop
That's good.
at 2 a.m. Like and get a burger. Oh great. That's awesome. I love the society. Like, what the fuck do you want me to do?
Yeah, that is the irony of these grievance politics, is that they just bring us back around to the thing that they were ostensibly trying to combat in the first place. Um, like Me Too and sort of, and like Me Too and sort of all that kind of feminism in and of itself created its own like anti-male feminism, and anti-racism and like anti-fascism creates its own breed of racism and fascism, whatever it is, like anti-white racism, and it's like all like so many, all the most hardline pro Palestine guys are who simultaneously um, have the strongest reactions against what they call Nazis and stuff, are themselves, the most vicious anti-Semites. And yeah, just like DEI and stuff is obviously its own conversation. I mean, like that's another thing that fed into the significance of her being stabbed to death, is that the judge who kept letting that guy go hadn't even passed the bar exam. She just had the
Oh,
job as a judge because she was a black woman.
great. Great.
Yeah.
More of that. More of that. Yeah, no, I was just
So
pulling up.
it's just like grievance justice. It's just like grievance justice for black people. So it's like, give this lady a job as a judge because she's a black woman and deserves this. But in doing so, has created profound injustice for this woman who got stabbed to death because this judge that you gave this role was completely unqualified and let this guy go, and he went off and just killed the lady. There's a profound irony in all this stuff.
Yeah, she escaped a war zone just to get stabbed on transit. Like, it's nothing short of insane. I can't wrap my mind around it. But I was looking for this video earlier because this is the perfect example of where this mentality, as you said, it comes full circle and bites you in the ass. I don't know. You've probably seen this clip. These guys were in their dorm watching Black Lives Matter protest and put the thumbs up, like, "Hey, we support you." They just threw a brick, and they're yelling, "We're on your side."
Yeah.
Tremendous. Like, on another note, actually, the stream went down and I had to restart it. I dropped you a link for it. I don't know if you want to repost it. I know we only have like a half hour left or so, but I figured I'd send it to you anyways. I don't know why it went down. I thought I'd set it up properly before, but still got some kinks.
My earphones run out of battery. I don't know if that would make a difference. But switch over to laptop audio.
Oh no. It that wouldn't do anything. I think it's something on my end. I mean, I even shut off my VPN and everything. I don't know what the issue is, but yeah, still got some things to work through. But while you do that, yeah, I feel like the conspiratorial minded part of me thinks that this is actually an intended outcome. That the goal is to create such a fever pitch within general society at large, so that when the right wing does eventually start becoming militant and violent and organized, that it creates the perfect precedent for name the government body to come in and crack down on them and say, "Oh, see, we were right. We told you that these extremists, they were the problem all along. We said they were a problem. We've been calling them out for years, and now we are vindicated because they stabbed somebody or bombed a car or what have you. It feels like they're creating the conditions, or the conditions are being created on purpose or otherwise, so that when the inevitable does happen and people start defending themselves in their communities, that somebody's going to take it too far, and that it's going to create a precedent for, oh, we need to crack down on them. See, we let them put the flags up, and now those migrants are dead, or what have you. I feel like that's what happens. They create the necessary conditions for a government crackdown.
Whether intentional or not, it certainly would do. The situation in Britain is that those who can be governed are governed harder, and those who cannot be governed are governed less. We seem to be kind of going through your prototypical anarcho tyranny, where the state is not interested in dealing with antisocial people or criminals, but is very much interested in dealing with like nativist dissent.
You posted the Discord link, by the way. It was the wrong link there.
Fuck. It doesn't fit the bill, so to speak. Okay.
We're learning as we go here, guys. We're learning as we go. It's been a year, but we're still we're still learning.
Yeah, literally.
Funny enough, the audio quality is actually much better with you talking like this.
Yeah, no, that tends to be the case. The AirPods are usually, yeah, okay, fair enough. That's good. Hopefully people can hear me for the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, they can hear
you. Yeah, exactly. And I think so as I was saying, whether or not it's intentional, that will happen. When Axel Rudakabana stabbed all those, I mean, he stabbed all of them, but he only killed 3 of them. When he stabbed all those girls at in Southport, I don't think necessarily the government was. To some extent, they probably were, but I don't think they were expecting the response from people that they got, which was like the widespread countrywide riots. And so they certainly didn't handle the situation such that they wanted that to happen. But when it did, literally the first thing Keir said in his first speech announcement was to denounce, as he called, far-right thugs. And that was the kind of running tagline that they went with to describe the civil unrest that followed the stabbings, was to refer to it as far-right dissent, purely political far-right people who had nothing to do with the grievances of the families or anything like that, which obviously isn't true. To some extent, it is. Obviously, same with the flags and stuff. It's to some extent, yeah, okay. These are particularly political people who are doing these things, but the bulk of it, the bulk of the momentum, the bulk of the drive is just normal, concerned people. And the Southport riots were just a reaction against. Was just an externalization of normal people's anger and frustration.
Mm-hmm.
But the line that they chose to go with was that this was like far-right thuggery that had to be denounced in all of its forms, because the expected response, the response that they wanted, was for the average person to see what happened and to not look back in anger. Which obviously is just insane. Like you just they expect people to see a second-generation Rwandan immigrant stab 3 children to death, explicitly in his own words, to bring about a new Rwandan genocide in Britain, for no other reason other than to just kill these kids for the sake of killing kids. And the expected response is for people to let it happen, leave everything up to the government, and not have anything hateful to say whatsoever, which is obviously just completely insane. But that's what they want, and if you deviate from that, script, they will come down on you as hard as nails. But they won't come down as hard as nails on Rwandan immigrants who stab children to death. You know.
Yeah, no, it's certainly the protesters' fault that they got to be more careful. But let them stab however many people they want. The other disturbing thing that I found during that summer riots was that they actually ended up letting sex offenders and domestic abusers out to make rooms in the prisons because they didn't have enough room for all the people posting all the nasty things on Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
Which is, I like how far, like, the cycle of depravity, it just keeps getting, it goes further and further and further the closer that you look at the situation. And
Yep.
I hate that, like, this is the conclusion that we've come to, but it's like, okay, well, you're not leaving me with any choice. Now it's like as if being racist is actually like a shield that you can wear, a suit of armor that you can wear going around. Because if you decide to not associate with these people, chances are you're actually going to live a safer life. And it's like, is that the society that we want to live in? Where we're not actively encouraging it, but just looking at statistics, it's like, well, do you want to be called a racist, or do you not want to have a knife in your throat? You gotta pick and choose. Like, which of the evils is lesser for you?
Yeah, exactly. It is funny. I mean, just the British government genuinely seems to be doing everything in its power to obliterate its own legitimacy, and that has happened. I mean, they have been successful. What we're short of currently is violent uprising. What we do get is, as I say, like, short of violent uprising, what you do get is voting intention, and voting intention is literally just anything other than the current guise, which is like indicative of what the mood of where the mood is at. And so it's like, when you look at the current polling for Britain, just all of England is just Reform Blue. During the last general election, all of England was Labour red. In both cases, as I say, like, Labour didn't win a landslide because of on the merit of their policy platform. It's not because their policies were like fucking amazing and everyone was blown away and they were like, these are going to be the guys that solve all the problems. That's not why we voted them in. We voted them in because we had 14 years straight of just completely useless conservatives who were not conservative in any way, shape, or form. And so people voted in Labour because they were Labour, because they weren't Tories. Reform are currently winning by a landslide in current polling projections because they're Reform, because they're not Tories or Labour. That's the only reason. And obviously what that's saying is everybody fucking hates the government and literally just wants like the next best, like the first next best alternative.
Even if it's shit.
Technically,
even if it doesn't meet their demands, even if it doesn't go all the way.
Yeah, even if it's just whatever it is, like we are going to take what we can get. Unless we just storm the Houses of Parliament and just replace them entirely. But obviously, the kind of white pill there, to bring it back to the day of the week, to bring the white pill around, the nice thing about all of this, like, horrible British decline and stuff, is that Britain is still a fairly normal functioning democracy, and it's like, while we are sort of laboring under an extremely Soviet, authoritarian regime that hates British people and, pulls out all the stops to oppress them, it has absolutely no problem with passing over the reins of power. If like the guy came along and if the party came along that was like Reform, but like was actually good and was like, we're going to deport all these people, we're going to like build all these prisons and be incredibly harsh on crime, we're going to massively expand our nuclear capacity, we're going to fix the economy, somehow, some way, we're going to increase wages and just like fix all these major problems, and actually had like a reasonable plan to do so, and the people that were involved were like actually reasonable, capable people. The thing is that they would win a fucking landslide, and they would become the next guys. The problem is that they don't exist. They haven't come around. And so we're just left with, Tories and Labour. Well, I mean, Tories fading into non-existence, and so you're just kind of left with this like weird amalgamation of Labour and then Reform. And as I say, come the next general election, assuming Reform doesn't fucking bottle it, which they might end up doing, they'll just win like a couple hundred seat majority. They can do pretty much whatever they want, and it's then the ball is just entirely in their court. The reason that like people don't really have, at least me specifically, doesn't really have like confidence in Reform and Nigel Farage and stuff, is that obviously it's not as simple as just fixing all these problems. All these problems exist for a reason, and a lot of that reason is that the entire, like behind the scenes, the entire British political framework, i.e. like the civil service and cabinet ministers and stuff, they're all maligned against the Prime Minister, and they all do their utmost to convince the Prime Minister that he doesn't have nearly as much power as he does. The British Prime Minister is one of the most powerful national leaders in the world. He can just fucking write, he himself can just write like a one-sentence bill that just says, deport all the brown people. And if he's got like a 100+ seat majority, then Parliament will vote in favour of it, assuming he has the loyalty of his party. And then it just goes to the King, and the King has to say yes to it, otherwise he creates a constitutional crisis. Mm-hmm. So the Prime Minister can just do whatever he wants, but he doesn't. In its current instantiation, the British Prime Minister doesn't realise that he can just do all that stuff. Like he doesn't, like Keir Starmer doesn't realise that tomorrow he could just leave the ECHR. Like he doesn't need to fucking do anything. Like he can just leave it, and there won't be any like cosmic like repercussions for doing that. But he doesn't realise that, and there's a very explicit, very specific, very real apparatus that acts against him to make him think that. And so the reason that there's not really much confidence in like Reform and Nigel Farage and stuff is that these guys are all insiders. They paint themselves as outsiders and revolutionaries and stuff like that, but they're insiders. They're career Westminster politicians who have derived their well-being from this system. But the problem is that if they get into power, their job is to fucking obliterate that entire system. So can you trust them to do that? Not really.
So leaves us in a stalemate then. I'm just kind of hoping and waiting that the people who actually hold the levers of power will do the people's bidding. But realistically and based on the track record, it doesn't look like they have any aspirations to do so. And I mean, that's only counting, the domestic influence that people have over the politicians. What about foreign? What about all the various investments that all these people have, or ideological ties that they may have that are not exactly tied to Britain? I mean, I've seen quite a few politicians, especially in like Scotland and Ireland, come up to their parliaments and say, no, we need to elect more Pakistani people. We need to get more of our cultural ideals into the halls of power. You know, those people don't exactly sound like they want to fly the Union Jack anytime soon. They don't exactly sound like the kind of people you'd want to have a pint of Guinness with at the local pub. They don't exactly sound like they're local boys. It sounds more like they
Yeah.
fled their country and they like it here. They like the infrastructure here and they like the system here, but they just want more of their cultural influence. So they're going to vote and press their advantage where they can to make sure that that actually comes to fruition. It's like, well, how many of those people exist within the nation that have allegiances that are not necessarily prioritized towards Britain or the British people?
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, yeah, it's here we have to deal with, you know, going back to a point you raised earlier, which is like post mass immigration voting blocks. You know, it's like Sadiq Khan only recently got voted in for his third term as London mayor. Bullshit, complete nonsense. Just total fluke of demographic change that he won that, because fucking nobody likes Sadiq Khan except for the millions of Pakistanis and you know, quote unquote ethnic minorities who aren't even a minority in London anymore, because London is like 35% white, who all like him. In my mind, I think it's pretty realistic. That's the only reason that he won his third term. And obviously, you know, when you factor in, like, you got all of these sort of diametrically opposed MPs and people in like decision making in decision making positions who are very explicit about the fact that they represent the interests of entirely parallel communities. Then it's like, okay, yeah, they are obviously not acting in the interests of like normal British people. They think they are because they consider these communities to be indistinguishable from, you know, normal British society, but they're obviously not. You know, the communities that like marry their cousins and conduct honor killings and like rape children and stuff. It's like, hey, well, I obviously don't have anything in common with these guys. But you're there in Parliament, like there are like 2 or 3 independent MPs who were arguing on the floor in favor of cousin marriage because it was floated in Parliament that we would ban it legally.
I remember that. Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't have anything in common with you. You're like, we're not talking about the same things. But you are being voted in. Like you have managed to secure like a voting majority via entirely democratic means.
Yeah, he said it could help build family bonds. Yeah, but there's nothing I look forward to when it comes to family reunions than hooking up with my cousin. My God, after that long night session that we have, it just, you know, I feel so much closer to him. I feel so much closer to my family when I fuck them in the ass. It's just, you know, there's just something about that, something that's so visceral that you can't get it. You know, watching EastEnders, you can't get it, you know, playing Connect 4 or Uno. It's just, there's something about ramming your cousin up the ass that just gets me going so hard.
Oh yeah. I mean, who, like, you know, happens to the best of us. Who hasn't been there?
I can't fathom like how you could be like an adult in your 50s, 60s, what have you, and you are actually calling for the defense of this. Which, for those that don't know, cousin marriage in the UK and elsewhere is particularly high amongst Pakistani communities. I think their incest rate and their inbreeding rate is at like 60% or something. It's like close to, which is insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just like, hey, well, you're in Parliament of all places. You're not representing my interests. Like, obviously not.
I don't think. How do you? What argument do you even have that would even support such a thing? So, what, you want more deformed births? You want more disabled children? You want more of that? I like, what? Are we not in the middle of a birth rate crisis? Are we not in the middle of population decline? I thought that the whole point was to fix that. I thought that was the priority.
Yeah, that's, you know, the point. Like they aren't. You know, these are cultures that are birthing tons of children. Like they don't have that problem.
Well, they will be soon if they keep fucking their cousins at this rate. Maybe you know what? Maybe we should. Maybe we should celebrate it. Maybe we should openly advocate for it so that they can have their birth rate decline.
Yeah.
Yeah, absurd is not even the word that comes to mind. It's yeah, I don't know. I'm at a loss for words when it comes to this stuff. I don't know how to make sense of it.
Yeah.
Oh, at least Banksy's come around.
Well, has he? I mean, the guy. He
With
was
his
very
latest piece.
strategic.
Yeah.
He was very strategic in leaving the blank. In leaving the sign blank. Broadly, he's true. He's correct. Broadly, he's correct. In that, the British judge class, the British judicial class, is maligned against, free speech and British people. The thing is that like that piece appeared a couple of days after another Palestine Action protest, and so it's like, okay, I know why you put it there, and I don't really agree with you. However, given that you sort of left it blank, it's like, well, technically, we can just pick and choose what we identify the piece with, and so it's like I can say that's true for me, even though I'm pretty confident in saying that he made it for reasons that I don't even agree with. But whatever, doesn't matter. He's right and he's wrong. The guy himself is just like some kind of woke boomer. It's a nice piece, I suppose.
Yeah, it feels like it. Certainly feels like it. But I don't know. I think the point is made less so by Banksy and more so by the fact that the council worked so hard to scrub that immediately and put up all these barriers around it and to take it off because yeah, he's sticking his thumb at them. He's making fun of them as that's the least that they deserve. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see that the first waves of violence, which if they do come in the UK, I don't think they will be necessarily targeting migrant communities at first. I think they'll go after the judiciary. I think they will start going after their political leaders. I think they'll start going after all these people whose addresses you can find if you're smart enough. And I'm by no means advocating for it, but if you keep kicking the British people down like this, they're not going to take it for long. They're not going to just sit on the sidelines. There's a big march planned on September the 13th, which is actually not just happening in the UK. There's one happening here in Toronto where I live. There's quite a few happening across the United States from what I hear. And at some point, those marches are not just going to be speaking engagements where people have a megaphone. At some point, the torches are going to come out, and I would bet quite a large sum on the fact that they're going to start to go over after the judiciary for this because, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you can say that you're just doing your job, you're following the letter of the law. Everybody has a role in this. Everybody has a role to play in this. And you can just as easily say, I'm not going to do this. I refuse this order. I'm not going to abide by this law. I'm going to object in any way that I can. But they're not. They're not doing that. They're going along with it because business as usual.
Yeah. Correct. All right, bedtime for me, I think.
I was gonna say, yeah, to round off the stream here, is there anything that you wanted to finish on?
In keeping with the day of the week, because these past few days have been particularly black-pilling. I think sometimes you have a White Pill Wednesday, and I can't even be bothered to. I try my best, but sometimes, I usually just basically don't post anything. Like if it's the old thing. If I don't have anything nice to say, I'm just not going to say anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
You have those sort of tough weeks, but I think these past couple of days have been quite bad. and the repercussions of them will be felt for a while now. But for the sake of that spirit, and for the sake of kind of breaking from that mood, I think the point remains that things have a habit of working out in the end. And regardless of the trials and tribulations and the pain that we might have to go through in every respect, things work out, and they will work out. I think it's just. I think we should just. We would do well to remember that.
No, absolutely.
That's kind of what I want to say, really.
No, I share your sentiment. I think that even regardless of all the, I mean, even with Charlie Kirk, that's happened the last couple of hours. In some ways, it feels wrong to say this, but I do have hope, because actions like this, nothing short of a tragedy, whether it's Charlie Kirk or the rape gangs, or the fact that veterans across the world are going unhoused, meanwhile migrants are getting hotel treatment left, right, and center. All of this stuff is tragic. Isn't even the word for it. I can't even begin to imagine what kind of word could encapsulate something like that. But I have faith, because more and more people are waking up to this issue, and it's not becoming something on the fringe, and it's not becoming something that is said in hushed tones, in secret conversations, and in quiet bars, and late nights. I think it's going to become a much larger part of the national conversation in terms of the nations and the kind of quality of life that we want to have for us and the next generation. And regardless of how far it goes, I think that there's a very real chance that we can come out on the other end a better and much stronger society, whether it's here in Canada or in the UK. So I have faith. I have faith that the right people will hear the right message at the right time, and the right things will happen one way or another.
That is all you can have. In the end.
That's right. So to end it off, yeah, thank
important to keep
you.
it.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
It's important to keep it, as I was saying. It's important to keep it.
That's right. That's right. So in terms of socials, people can just find you. It's mostly just Twitter, right?
That's pretty much just Twitter, yeah.
Totally. Are you still getting sales from the Dyson Fear merch?
Yeah, it's funny. I always I'm useless at like making use of it, and you know, I got a bunch after I just made like one or two posts about the new hats that I was doing.
I saw that. Yeah.
But I leave it there in the bio and in the pinned tweet. So every now and then, just like a couple of times a month, maybe someone buys something, which is nice.
Right on. Yeah, go ahead and check out the store, guys. Pick up some merch. I'm sure we got some more stuff cooking in the future.
Most likely.
Maybe a jacket with just the cross that you have there, just all like made out of the cross. Because I mean, if you can't put up the flags, you might as well wear it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, right on. Yeah, thanks again
thanks
for making time.
Yeah, it was a fucking great conversation as usual.
Yeah. We should definitely do this again, because it's been a year. For most of which I've been in exile, but yeah, it would be good to have you on at some point soon.
Yes, if things will come to a head here, I'd be glad to fill you in about it.
Right on. Yeah, don't forget to put on your chainmail tomorrow.
It's in my bedroom.
All right, take care, guys. Have yourself a good night.
Good night.
And we're out.